My phone lit up at 6:47 in the morning. I wasn't even fully awake yet. I had one eye open, one arm thrown over the side of the bed, and I was still halfway inside a dream I don't remember anymore. Just warmth. Just the feeling of being somewhere safe. Then the screen lit up. A message from my coworker, Destiny. And I will never forget reading those words for the first time. Did you hear? Diana is coming back. She's running the New York office herself now. Starting Monday. I read it twice. Then I put the phone face down on the mattress and stared at the ceiling. Diana. I hadn't said that name out loud in almost 2 years. I hadn't let myself think it for longer than 3 seconds at a time. I had a whole system for it. The moment her name came up in any thought, I redirected. I thought about my grocery list. I thought about the presentation I had coming up. I thought about literally anything else. Because thinking about Diana for more than 3 seconds meant the next 20 minutes were gone. Lost. Just me, sitting somewhere, not moving, not breathing quite right, turning over something I had decided to leave alone. And now she was coming back, to my office, on Monday. I picked the phone back up, read the message a third time, like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something that made more sense. Like maybe it would say, Diana who? And I could say I don't know, and go back to sleep. But it said what it said. I sat up. The room was gray and quiet. Early morning light coming through the gap in the curtains, thin and pale, and doing nothing to help. I sat on the edge of my bed with my phone in both hands and tried to remember how to be someone who had moved on. I thought I had. I really thought I had. Let me tell you how wrong I was. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. I joined Harlow and Crest 14 months before Diana left. That was 3 years ago. I was 26, freshly promoted from a junior analyst role at a smaller firm downtown, and I was the kind of nervous that doesn't show on the surface, the kind that just makes you very, very precise. I checked everything twice. I showed up early. I volunteered for the projects no one else wanted. I had this theory that if I was useful enough, I would eventually stop feeling like I didn't belong. Diana ran the strategy division. I didn't work directly under her at first. My team sat on the other side of the floor, and she existed in my peripheral vision as this presence. That's the only word I have for it. She walked into a room and something shifted. Not in a dramatic way. Not like thunder. More like the air pressure changed slightly, like when the weather is about to turn, and your body knows before your brain does. She was 41. I was 26. She had been at the company for 9 years, and she moved through it the way someone moves through their own house in the dark, confident, sure, without needing to look where she was going. I noticed her before we ever spoke. I noticed the way she held meetings. She never performed urgency. She never raised her voice to be taken seriously. She would sit at the head of a conference table and ask one question, just one, and the whole room would rearrange itself around that question like it had been waiting for her to name it. I noticed the way she listened. Actually listened. Most people in positions like hers have already started formulating their response before you finish your sentence. Diana would go completely still, her hands flat on the table, her eyes on yours, and she wouldn't speak until she was certain she had understood. Not just the words, but what was underneath them. I noticed all of this and told myself it was professional admiration. That was my first lie. We started working together properly about 4 months in. There was a client situation, a complicated restructuring project that had stalled, and my manager pulled me into the room to present some analysis I'd done. Diana was there. She asked me 3 questions. I answered them. After the meeting, she walked over to me in the hallway and said, "That was clean work. I appreciated the framing." I said thank you. She said, "I'm going to request you on the Vasquez account if that's all right." I said yes before I had even fully processed the question. That was how it started. We spent 6 weeks on that project in close proximity, shared documents, back-to-back calls, sometimes the same conference room for hours at a stretch. And I learned in that time who Diana was when she wasn't performing being in charge. She was drier than I expected. Her humor came out in small, quiet ways. A single raised eyebrow during a particularly convoluted client explanation. A 2-word aside whispered to me across the table that would sit in my chest and make me want to laugh for the rest of the meeting. She was meticulous but not rigid. She could hold a plan in one hand, and the possibility that the plan was wrong in the other, simultaneously, without either one contaminating the other. She made coffee the same way every time, black, no exceptions, in a specific blue ceramic mug she kept in the office kitchen. If the mug was in the cabinet, she put it in the dishwasher and waited. She didn't use any other mug. I learned that in week 2. I started arriving early enough to make sure it was clean and ready. I told myself that was just being considerate. That I did that kind of thing for all my colleagues. I didn't. There were other things, too. Things I cataloged without meaning to. The way she smelled, something clean and faintly cedar, like the inside of a well-made closet. The way she said my name, Mara. With a brief pause before it, like she was making sure she had my attention before she gave me something. The way she tilted her head when she was thinking, just slightly, and then came back level when she had decided. I know how this sounds. But back then, I filed it all under. I really respect this woman, and kept showing up and doing excellent work and believing myself entirely. The 6 weeks became 6 months of working closely together. Then a year. Then just normal. She was my professional reality, the most important person in my day. I shaped my schedule around hers without admitting that was what I was doing. And we were good together. That's the thing. Not just professionally, though we were that too. The work we produced in tandem had a quality that neither of us quite replicated alone. But as people, we had a rhythm. She knew when I needed to think out loud, and when I needed quiet. I knew when she had already made up her mind and was just being polite by asking for input, and when she genuinely hadn't decided and wanted to be pushed. We had lunch together at least twice a week. Not always planned. Just, she'd appear in the doorway of my office with her coat on, and I'd close my laptop. I never needed to ask where we were going. And then her company offered her the San Francisco position, and she took it. And I found out the same way as everyone else. An email from HR on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember sitting very still at my desk for a long time after I read it. Just very still. She left in October. By December, I had convinced myself I was fine. By February, I had redecorated my apartment and started a gym habit and downloaded a meditation app and told every single person who asked that yes, things were great. The new team structure was a real opportunity. I was really excited about the direction the company was going. By April, I had stopped pretending quite so hard. Because here's the thing about grief. And I know how that word sounds. I know how dramatic it sounds to use it about a colleague who didn't die, who just relocated. But here's the thing. It doesn't follow your plans. You can schedule your sadness all you want. You can give yourself 1 week to feel it, and then declare it over. Grief finds the cracks. And I was full of cracks. I didn't understand that at the time. I understood it the way I understand certain math theorems. I could state the principle without truly knowing it in my body. What I knew in my body was this. The office was too quiet. My days had a kind of blankness to them that I kept trying to fill with productivity and after-work plans and new projects. I worked harder. I got promoted. I moved into a bigger role and discovered that more responsibility did not, as advertised, make the days feel more full. It just made them faster. Faster and just as blank. I made friends at the office, or deepened the ones I had. Destiny, who I'd known vaguely for years, became someone I actually told things to. She was funny, and blunt, and completely incapable of letting you feel sorry for yourself for more than about 4 minutes, which was, it turned out, exactly what I needed. She never asked directly about Diana, just worked around the absence of her the way you work around a bruise. I dated. Twice. I dated someone for long enough that it started to mean something. Or I thought it did. The first one was a woman I met at a gallery opening. Brilliant, funny, completely wrong for me in a way I couldn't name until later. The second was a woman who worked in publishing and had excellent taste in restaurants, and who I genuinely liked. I liked her. Past tense. Present tense. I still like her. I just couldn't stay. I kept getting to a certain place in those relationships and stopping. Not running exactly. More like coming up against a wall I couldn't see. Like there was something I was holding in reserve that I didn't know I was holding. And eventually both of them noticed, in different ways, with different levels of grace, and they named it, or they left, or both. I told myself I was a commitment phobe. I told myself I was a workaholic. I told myself I was in a chapter of my life that was about career, and not about partnership. I told myself many things. Here is what I did not tell myself. You are waiting for something you can't even name. You are measuring everything against a feeling you've never acknowledged. You are comparing everyone you meet to a woman you worked with for 2 years and said goodbye to in the parking garage of your office building on an overcast Tuesday, and you are doing it entirely without permission from your own conscious mind. That would have been honest. Instead, I meditated and went to the gym and did excellent work, and occasionally, in weak moments, a glass of wine too many, a Sunday afternoon with nothing to do, I let myself wonder what she was doing out there, whether San Francisco suited her, whether she had found her people, whether she still used that blue mug. I never reached out. She sent an email in November of the first year. Formal, group email, checking in on the team, signing off with the kind of warmth that keeps its distance. I drafted 3 responses, deleted all of them, responded with 4 professional lines that I read back to myself afterward, and felt nothing toward. Good. That was the healthy choice. That was me being an adult who understood that professional relationships have natural ends, and not everyone we admire needs to be in our life forever, and some doors close for reasons that have nothing to do with us. I believe that. I had also, without realizing it, started going to the office kitchen every morning and quietly moving the blue mug Diana had left behind. She'd forgotten it, probably hadn't even noticed, to a specific spot on the second shelf where it wouldn't accidentally get moved or used. I had been doing this for 6 months before I caught myself doing it. I looked at the mug. I looked at my own hands. Then I made my coffee, put the mug back in its place, and went to my desk. I didn't think about it again. Not for more than 3 seconds. Monday. I left my apartment 20 minutes later than I normally would have, which meant I arrived on time instead of early, which meant the kitchen was busy, and I didn't get a moment alone with the mug situation, and I don't know why that felt significant, but it did. Like I had been denied a small ceremony I hadn't known I needed. The elevator doors opened on the 14th floor and I could feel it immediately. Not her presence exactly, more like everyone else's awareness of it. That specific way an office recalibrates around a power shift. Slightly louder conversations than necessary, a few too many people finding reasons to be near the main conference room. Destiny caught my eye across the floor and gave me a look that was precisely calibrated between sympathy and entertainment. I gave her a look back that said, "Do not start." She mouthed, "She's in with Marcus." Marcus, our division head. So the handoff meeting was already happening. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and spent 40 minutes reading the same email 3 times without retaining anything in it. Then I heard the conference room door. I didn't look up. I had made a decision the night before, lying awake at 2 in the morning in the dark, which had been my primary occupation for about 72 hours at that point, that I would be neutral, professional, warm, but boundaried. I had managed 24 months without her, and I was a different person now. A more settled person, a person who understood herself better. And I was going to extend a collegial welcome to my returning director and then go about my excellent work without drama. I did not look up. Then her voice came from across the room. She was talking to Marcus, something about the timeline on a West Coast client, and my entire body remembered her. That's the only way I can describe it. My entire body remembered her, like a chord struck in a room that has the right acoustics for it. Something low and resonant, starting in the sternum and spreading outward. I recognized her voice the way you recognize the smell of your childhood home. Not consciously, not analytically, just suddenly and completely, and with no warning and no recourse. I kept my eyes on my screen. 30 seconds later, Mara. I looked up. She was standing at the edge of my desk. And she looked the same. That was the thing. 2 years. And she looked fundamentally the same. The same quality of stillness. The same way of standing like she had chosen this exact spot and had no particular interest in being anywhere else. Her hair was shorter, cut close around her jaw now, in a way that suited her completely. There were lines at the corners of her eyes I didn't remember, which meant I had been looking at her face carefully enough to notice what was new. I noticed that I had noticed. "Diana," I said. My voice was normal. I want to be clear about that. My voice was entirely normal. "It's good to see you," she said. And she looked at me the way she always had, with that particular stillness, that patience, like she was reading a longer document than the one in front of her. "You too," I said. "How was the transition?" And we talked. Professionally, warmly, briefly. She was moving through the floor, greeting people. It wasn't a special stop. 2 minutes, maybe 3. She asked about the current project slate. I summarized. She said she'd been reading the reports on the plane. I said I'd updated the main deck last week. She said, "I know." I could tell. She moved on. I turned back to my screen. My hands were absolutely still on the keyboard. Inside, something was happening that I had no framework for and no interest in examining right at this moment. So I did what I always did. I opened a new document and I started working. The first week was fine. I had been an idiot to worry. This is what I told Destiny at lunch on Friday, having successfully delivered a complete week of professional non-drama. "You're holding your fork funny," Destiny said. "I'm holding it normally." "You're holding it like someone is watching you hold it and you want them to think you hold forks normally. That is not a thing." "Mara," she put her own fork down. "I've known you for 3 years. I know what you look like when you're fine, and I know what you look like when you're doing a performance of fine. This is the second one." I put my fork down too. "She's my director," I said. Whatever I felt before, it's been 2 years. I'm different now. She's just my director." Destiny looked at me for a long moment. "Okay," she said. "Okay?" I said okay. "You don't mean okay." "I absolutely mean okay." She picked up her fork again. "I just also mean, she asked about you twice before you even got in Monday morning." The floor dropped out of the conversation. "What?" "She was in with Marcus. She asked how you were. Then Marcus started in about the quarterly projections and she listened and then 10 minutes later asked again, specifically, how is Mara adjusting to the senior role?" I looked at my plate. "That's a management question," I said. "She's my director. She was asking about the team." "Sure," Destiny said. "She asked about the whole team. She asked about you specifically, twice, before she'd seen you." I picked up my fork and put it down again. "That doesn't mean anything," I said. Destiny said nothing, which was, I had learned over 3 years, exactly how she said, "You're lying to yourself and we both know it." The second week was worse, not because anything happened. That was the problem. Nothing happened. Diana was a consummate professional. She ran sharp, efficient meetings. She distributed attention evenly. She gave me no special treatment, no unusual focus, nothing I could point to and say, "This is something." And yet, there was the Tuesday morning when she arrived to find the conference room double booked and ended up sitting in the open workspace near my desk for 2 hours. Not near me, exactly. Just in proximity. And I noticed that she got up once to get coffee and came back with a second cup and set it on the corner of my desk without asking and without a word. Just set it down and went back to her chair. I didn't drink it immediately. I waited a full 5 minutes, like waiting somehow made it less significant. It was black. She knew how I took my coffee. I drank it and told myself that she probably knew how everyone on her team took their coffee. She was thorough. That was a managerial quality. That was literally just being a good director. There was the Thursday where we ended up the last 2 people on the floor after a late deliverable push, and she knocked on my office door at 9:30 and said, "You don't have to stay." And I said, "I'm almost done." And she said, "I know, but you don't have to." And then she leaned in the doorway for a moment, just a moment, and said, "Do you still live on the Upper West Side?" I looked up. "Yes," I said. "I'm over on Amsterdam now," she said, "since I got back." I didn't know why she was telling me that. I still don't know why she was telling me that. I said, "That's a nice block," she said. "It is." A small pause. "Good night, Mara." "Good night." She left. I sat in my empty office with my hands in my lap and tried to understand what had just happened and arrived at. Nothing. Nothing happened. 2 colleagues had a brief exchange at the end of a long day. I walked home from the office that night because the air was cold and I needed it. The whole way, I thought about the fact that she and I lived 6 blocks apart. It was in the 3rd week that the architecture of my resolve started to show its cracks. We had a presentation, a major one, the kind that takes a team off their regular schedule for several days. And Diana put herself on it personally, which she had the authority to do, of course, which she had done before I was even in this role. It was a normal thing. We worked together every day for a week, conference rooms, shared documents, long afternoons with cold coffee, and the particular intimacy of a deadline shared by 2 people who are both quietly determined not to be the weak link. And she was. Herself. That was the problem. She was so completely herself, the drier-than-expected humor, the one-question approach to complicated problems, the way she would go very still when she was thinking, hands flat on the table, eyes unfocused, and then come back online with something that cut directly to the center of the issue. I had forgotten how it felt to work with someone who made me better at my own job just by being in the room. I had forgotten. Or I had tried to forget. On Wednesday of that week, we went over our section of the deck for the 3rd time at around 7 in the evening. And somewhere in the middle of reviewing the 4th slide, I said something. I don't even remember what. Some observation about the client's likely objection on the pricing model. And Diana put her pen down and looked at me. "That's exactly right," she said. "Not, good point. Not, I think you're onto something. Just exactly right. The way you say it when someone has named the thing you were circling without being able to get to." I felt it like a struck match. Something lit up, quick and quiet, in the center of my chest. And this time I couldn't redirect fast enough. This time I sat with it for exactly 1 second too long. And in that second I understood something I had been working very, very hard not to understand for 2 years and 3 weeks and approximately 4 days. I wasn't getting over her. I had never been getting over her. I had been managing her. I had been containing the fact of her. The specific, irreducible fact of who she was and what it felt like to be known by her. In an increasingly small and reinforced compartment inside myself, and I had been calling that moving on. And now she was 6 blocks from my apartment, and she knew how I took my coffee. And when I said exactly the right thing, she looked at me like I was the most interesting problem in the room. I went home that night, and I stood in my kitchen for a long time without turning the lights on. I was thinking about the blue mug on the second shelf. I was thinking about 3 seconds at a time. I was thinking about how a wall doesn't mean you've stopped wanting what's on the other side. I was thinking about what it would cost me to admit what I actually felt. And then I thought about what it was already costing me not to. I didn't sleep well. I didn't sleep well for a while after that. But before I go any further, if you made it this far, it's because something in this story touched something you already know. That feeling you spend a long time trying to not name because naming it changes everything. So do me a favor. Hit the like button right now. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps me keep bringing stories like this one to you. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe and turn on the bell notification. That way, YouTube lets you know the moment a new story drops here on the channel. Now I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever spent a long time not letting yourself feel something? Not because you didn't feel it, but because feeling it fully would mean you had to do something about it? Tell me about it. I read every single one. And tell me what city you're watching from. I put a heart on everyone. Now, back to the story. The presentation went well. Of course it did. We were good at this, she and I. We had always been good at this. Afterward, the team went out. The kind of low-key drink situation that follows a successful deliverable, 2 bars down from the office. That strange shared exhale of people who have been holding tension together and can finally let it go. Diana came. She sat across the table, not next to me, and I was grateful for that, and also, quietly, unreasonably, not. I had 2 drinks. One more than I usually allowed myself in a work context. At some point the group thinned. It was getting late, a Thursday, people with early mornings. And it was just 4 of us, and then 3, and then somehow just the 2 of us, which happened in that gradual, undramatic way that I suspect was not entirely accidental, and which I definitely did not engineer, except that I also didn't leave when I had the opportunity. She ordered a 3rd drink. I ordered water. Tell me something, she said. About what? Anything. We've spent a week in conference rooms. Tell me something that isn't about the presentation. I looked at her. She was watching me in that way she had. Patient, focused, like she had nowhere else to be. Like whatever I said next was the most interesting thing that was going to happen to her this week. I've been reading a lot, I said. Fiction mostly, which is new for me. I used to only read nonfiction. What changed? I think I got tired of wanting everything to be useful, I said. I wanted to read something that was just human, that didn't have a lesson. She considered this. What are you reading right now? I told her. She knew the book. She'd read it 2 years ago, on the plane to San Francisco. She told me what she'd thought of the ending. I told her I wasn't there yet, and asked her not to tell me. She said she wouldn't. She said, I'll just say that I finished it on the plane and then sat with it for an hour before I landed. Was that hard? I asked. Landing? She knew I didn't mean the plane. She looked at her drink. Yes, she said. I waited. I'd made the decision clearly, she said. That was the strange thing. I wasn't uncertain. But that didn't mean it was easy. She looked up. Some things are both simultaneously. I thought about all the decisions I had made clearly in the past 2 years and what they had cost me. I know what you mean, I said. She looked at me for a moment. Just looked. Do you? She said, gently. The way she asked questions when she actually wanted to know the answer. And the honest answer was sitting right there, just beneath the surface, completely visible if I chose to show it. I had been not choosing for 2 years. I missed working with you, I said, when you left. It wasn't the full truth, but it was in the direction of the truth. A door left slightly ajar. She was quiet for a moment. I know, she said. I missed it too. I missed the work. Not, I missed the team. I missed it too. I didn't ask what she meant by that. I didn't have the courage yet. Not fully. Not right there in the bar with my water glass and the sound of the city outside, and the whole uncertain weight of what it would mean to make this real instead of hypothetical. But something had shifted. We walked out of the bar at 11 and stood on the sidewalk in the November cold, and she pulled her coat closed, and we stood for a moment without filling the silence. 6 blocks, she said finally. 6 blocks, I said. She looked at me. Something in her expression, carefully arranged but not quite careful enough. And I recognized it, suddenly, with a clarity that landed in my chest like a key turning in a lock. She was waiting too. She had been waiting too. The city moved around us. A cab went by. Someone laughed on the other side of the street. And there we were, 2 women standing on a sidewalk in November, not quite saying the thing. Both of us knowing we weren't saying it. Good night, Mara, she said. Good night. She walked north. I walked north. We went the same direction for 3 blocks without speaking, and then she turned west on her street and I kept going, and I listened to my own footsteps on the pavement and tried to understand what I was going to do with myself. I had a wall. The wall had a door, and for the first time in 2 years, I was standing close enough to it to reach out and knock. The next week was different, not in a visible way. Not in a way I could explain to Destiny, who was watching me with her particular forensic attention and clearly drawing conclusions I wasn't quite ready to hand her. Different in me. I stopped spending energy not feeling things. That was the main change. I let the information exist. She is back. She is 6 blocks away. When you say exactly the right thing, she looks at you like you are the most interesting problem in the room. You have been carrying her name in a compartment you've been calling moved on for 24 months, and it is time to stop calling it that. I let all of that exist. It didn't feel like relief. Not yet. It felt like standing at the edge of something with your toes curled over the side, looking down, knowing that once you step off, there is no reversing the step. But I was also, somewhere underneath the fear, done pretending the ledge was solid ground. She and I had 3 more late evenings that month. Never exactly arranged, always arriving through the legitimate machinery of work and deadlines. But I noticed that she chose to stay when she didn't have to. And I noticed that I chose to stay when I didn't have to. And I noticed that neither of us named it. There was a Thursday in early December when we were the last ones on the floor again. This was becoming a pattern, and we both knew it. And she brought me coffee without being asked, and sat in the chair across from my desk instead of going back to her office and said, "Can I ask you something?" "Yes," I said. "When you said you missed working with me." She paused, chose her words. "Was that all you missed?" The room was very quiet. I looked at her. She held the question open, not pressing it, not pulling it back, just leaving it there between us, taking up space. I thought about 2 years of managing, 2 years of 3-second limits and redecorated apartments and relationships that ran aground on a wall I couldn't name. I thought about a blue mug on the second shelf. I thought about arriving early. I thought about walking home in the cold and thinking about a 6-block radius and knowing, in my body, that knowing someone's coffee order can be a whole secret language if you let it be. No, I said. That wasn't all. She held very still. I should tell you, she said, that I didn't take this assignment by accident. I had thought about that. I had tried not to think about it. You could have run any office, I said. Yes. You asked for New York. It wasn't a question. She said nothing, which was her version of yes. I set my pen down. Diana, I said. And I heard it, the brief pause before her name, the one she put before mine. I had borrowed it from her without knowing. What are we doing? She looked at me for a long moment, and then quietly she said, I don't know yet, but I think we should stop pretending we're not doing it. The city outside the window, the low hum of the building's climate system, my own heartbeat, which I was suddenly very aware of. I'm not ready, I said. Honestly. I don't mean I don't. I mean I'm not ready in the sense that I need to understand what this is before I step into it. I've spent 2 years not understanding what this was, and I need to stop doing that. But slowly. She nodded. No impatience. No disappointment. Slowly, she said. I can do slowly. I believed her. That was the thing. I believed her completely. December became January. January was strange and good and hard in the specific way that honest things are hard. Not because they hurt, but because they require you to be present to them in a way that you cannot control or predict. We didn't name it yet. That was the agreement. Unspoken. Mutually understood. We were taking the time that I'd asked for, and she was giving it with a patience that I knew, by now, was real and not performed. She was not waiting for me to catch up so she could have what she wanted. She was waiting because she understood that the arriving mattered as much as the destination. I went to therapy for the first time in 4 years. Not because of Diana, specifically. Because of what Diana had made visible. How long I had been organizing my interior life around avoidance. How much energy I had poured into the architecture of not feeling. My therapist, a woman named Dr. Okafor, who had an office full of plants and a tone that reminded me of a very calm river, sat with this patiently and asked good questions and said, in our 3rd session, "It sounds like you've been very good at managing your feelings without letting yourself have them." I stared at the ceiling. "Yes," I said. "That's exactly it. What would it feel like to just have them?" I thought about it. "Like falling," I said. "But maybe like landing somewhere too." She wrote something. "Those aren't mutually exclusive." No, they weren't. It was a Saturday in mid-January when the wall came down. Not dramatically. Not with thunder. We had plans. Coffee. The kind of plans that were technically casual and practically not. The kind of plans we'd been making and not naming for 3 weeks. She lived on Amsterdam. I lived 6 blocks north. We met at a place on the corner. A small coffee shop with good light and small tables, and the kind of low, unambitious music that doesn't ask anything of you. She was already there when I arrived. She had ordered my coffee. Black, with 1 sugar. She'd learned that in the past 2 months. I had watched her learn it the same way I watched everything she did now. Carefully, with the specific attention of someone who is trying to memorize before she has permission to. I sat down across from her. The light came through the window at that angle you only get in January, when the sun is low and very bright and makes everything look more defined than usual, all the edges sharper. She was in a gray sweater, no coat, both hands around her mug, looking at me in that way she had. We talked about the book I'd finished. She said she was glad I'd liked the ending. I said I'd been thinking about it all week. She asked what I was thinking. I told her about how the character spends the whole novel trying to arrive somewhere. And then when she arrives, she realizes the arriving was the wrong frame all along. It was never about getting somewhere. It was about who she was becoming on the way. Diana considered this. Do you think she knew that at the beginning? She asked. I think she knew it and didn't know it, I said. Both at the same time. She nodded. Like most things. I looked at my coffee. I want to tell you something, I said. She waited. I've been doing that, I said. The thing the character does, making it about arriving, making it about when I'm ready, when I understand it completely, when I'm sure. I looked up. I think I've been using readiness as a way of not doing the thing. She was very still. And, she said. And I think I'm still not completely ready, I said. I think I might not get all the way ready in advance. I think that might be something I've been getting wrong about myself for a long time. I exhaled. But I also think, I know what this is. I know what I feel. And I am done spending energy pretending I don't, because that pretending has cost me things and I'm tired of paying for it. She said nothing, her hands around the mug, her eyes on mine. I'm not asking you to wait anymore, I said. I'm asking you to let me do this imperfectly. Let me be in the middle of understanding it while we're in it. The coffee shop was warm. Outside, the January light was doing its sharp, clear thing, cutting everything into focus. She reached across the table. She put her hand over mine. Not reaching for my hand, just resting her hand over it. Warm and unhurried and very certain. Mara, she said, with the pause before it that I had been carrying in my chest for 2 years and longer. Yes, I said. I have been in the middle of understanding it the entire time, she said. I went to San Francisco in the middle of understanding it. I asked for New York in the middle of understanding it. She paused. There's no after the middle. There's only further in. I looked at her hand on mine. I thought about the blue mug on the second shelf. I thought about 3 seconds at a time. I thought about all the things I had not let myself know. Okay, I said. Okay, she said. Further in, I said. She smiled. Not a small smile. The kind she gave rarely. Full and real and without any of its usual restraint. I had seen that smile maybe 4 times in 3 years, and each time it had done something to me that I had filed under professional warmth and refused to examine. I was done refusing to examine it. Outside, the city continued. Cabs and pedestrians and the cold, brilliant January afternoon doing absolutely nothing to accommodate the inside of that coffee shop, the table between us, her hand on mine. I did not need it to. I had been waiting 2 years to be here. I wasn't ready. I was here anyway. I don't know yet what further in looks like. I know what it feels like this week, like paying attention, like allowing myself to notice without immediately filing the notice under something manageable, like letting a feeling be the size it actually is instead of the size that fits in the space I've allocated, like standing at a window instead of away from one. We haven't resolved anything. There's still the office. There's still the complexity of what we are to each other professionally and what we are becoming to each other outside of that. There are still conversations we haven't had and questions I haven't asked and things she might say that I'm not ready for. But she asked me, on the sidewalk after the coffee shop, if I wanted to walk. And I said yes. And we walked north on Amsterdam in the cold, side by side, not quite touching and not quite not touching. And she told me about a bookstore she'd found 3 blocks from her apartment. And I told her about the bakery I went to every Saturday morning that she might like. And the city was doing its city thing all around us, enormous and indifferent, and full of people who would never know what had just happened over 2 cups of coffee at a small table in the January light. The space between us felt different than it had 2 weeks ago. Still uncertain. Still in the middle of something. But warm. That was the word. That was the thing I hadn't been letting myself have. Warm. I finally stopped running from what I already knew. It wasn't a clean arrival. It wasn't a resolution with all the threads tied up. It was just me. choosing to be present in the exact place I was, with the exact feeling I had, without making it smaller to make it safer. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, that's the whole thing. That's the whole brave thing. If this story moved you in some way, type Talvez in the comments. That's how I know you made it to the end with me. And if you want to keep going, keep feeling things that are this inconveniently real, click the video that's showing on your screen right now. A big kiss, and until the next story. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description.